All right. Hello and welcome to the io.js website working group meeting for February 16th, 2015. My name is Trent Oswald. My handle is the Rebel Robot, and I am the facilitator for the group currently. We've got a small group in attendance today, but we'll try and get through as much as we can on the agenda. Why don't we go ahead and introduce both yourselves real quick?
Jeremiah Sinkpeel, Fishrock123 is my tag name.
Michael Rogers, Michael and my kid Leo. Yep.
Cool. Going through briefly what we went over last meeting 2 weeks ago. We talked about the status of the internationalization of build process, talked a little bit about social media, about putting build process and hosting information into the README, talking about the term stability and making sure that we're giving the right information across on the website in regards to it. Talked a little bit about device and browser coverage, about taking on the API documentation, as well as the IRC versus Gitter versus Slack issue that we were looking at. Out of that meeting, we had a few things that we agreed to be doing. I wanted to see about getting updates real fast on those. Do either of you guys have information on moving the documentation tooling over to our group yet?
I think that there's generally a consensus that we can take over the tooling part of it, but that the doc files themselves have to stay in the tree. And also there's that guy, I forgot his name, but he's already been working on revamping the tooling, so we should definitely work with him on what to do going forward.
So the thing we decided last time is that, and I don't think any of us have had really time to do this, is to actually look at different options for documentation tooling and what should actually be done. If we should go with Giant's doc tool, or do we need to make our own, or can we just use some existing solution that's just going to work anyways?
All right.
So the thing there right now is the what is it called? It's basically just something that Isaac wrote in a weekend, and even Isaac at this point is don't use this. It sucks. Don't even try to fix the tooling that's there. Just write new tooling. There's definitely a way to do better tooling for the documentation. So that was his recommendation as the author of.
Okay. Do either of you guys have the username of the person that was doing the tooling that we should talk to?
It's in one of the threads. He popped in. I think he may have been on.
He was in our last meeting, I believe. I think his name's Robert.
Okay.
Robert Cloth. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's try and track him down and talk about documentation tooling these next couple weeks. And I'll put that on the to-do list for here after this meeting, and we'll see where we can get rolling with that. Looks like Chris was to open up a issue for the doc tooling and to change the make file, but it doesn't look like Chris is here. And so
that was opened on the main repo, but I don't think there's been any action on it.
Okay. So we'll put that on the to-do list as well for next week. That's all part and parcel of the documentation tooling from what I remember. Then it looks like I agreed to take a look at the build tools and the templating. I went through and added build info to the template build process. And I was going to go through and do a revamp on the HTML template task, the templates task in the gulp file, but we had someone put in a pull request for a Jade templating option, and honestly, if that ends up working out well, I would rather not do a optimization on something that we're going to end up abandoning. And so that's definitely something that I want to take a look at today. It's part of the agenda to discuss. Looks like, yeah, Robert does look like he's on there for the doc tools. Sean was going to be looking at PRs and issues. Jeremiah said you were going to be looking into build, possibly guides, cross-browser CSS. How things go with that?
Well, we have your build and I18N stuff in now, so I think that's gone okay. I still haven't been able to look at some of the other stuff as much as I'd like. I haven't really had time to write any guide stuff, and yeah, that sucks.
That's fair. And that's definitely going to be a work in progress. I don't know if that's going to be something we're going to be like, hey, we have it done overnight. Whenever we have time to work on it, we'll be able to. Okay, with those updates, then we'll go straight into the agenda. First thing on the list, we're taking a look at the merging translation pull request policy in connection with the closing and fixing policy. We wanted to. Michael had a few good ideas on this about how we want localization groups to handle their own PRs, mainly because the website working group has no idea what we're looking at for, language fixes and things like that. Michael, do you want to take that away?
Yeah, I mean, basically what we should do is, now that we have a couple of these transactions merged in, we should look at who did the bulk of the work, both in reviewing it and in actually getting it in. And then we should open an issue and call out everybody that has been working on those and just add them as collaborators so that the language communities can merge their own PRs and they can create their own policies for how rigorously they want to review things, or if they just want to get them merged quickly and then fix them after they're up, or whatever they want to do. We should really just let that work out, whatever works best for those particular language communities. Stay out of it.
Okay. I still like the idea of having at least one website working group member give a +1 on it, just because giving them full contributor access means they also have access over the build and the styling, which is stuff that we should be maintaining more than the localization groups.
Well, if you look at how this has worked out, like in core and everywhere else, like nobody really steps on stuff that they don't understand. Like nobody merges stuff that's not in this little area that they know about. And like, people are actually really cautious when you give them commit access. It's somewhat surprising. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Like I think that we're trying to over optimize for that.
I agree with that. Like, it's worked out well in core, and again, it's Git, and ultimately, especially for us, though, it's not like we have a Git history that we need to maintain. If anything goes a little bit awry, we can fix it really easily.
Cool. So I think that'll be a good action piece then, to take a look through the main contributors for each pull request that we've gotten for the languages, and see about contacting those contributors and adding them so that they can kind of be the guru over their language, so to speak, for pull requests. Do either of you guys have anything else to add for that one?
The thing to look at would be, do we still need 2 working group members to +1 a PR then? Because I mean, I've always held that we probably don't need that anyways, but
yeah, not for the languages, or not for pure translation stuff. So I would just say that for pure translation, like our policy doesn't apply, and it's up to the policy of the language community that's merging it. So if they want to have 5 +1s, they can do 5 +1s. If they want to have 1 +1, they can do that. It's just up to them.
yeah, but I mean even non-localization stuff.
Oh, I mean, has it held stuff up? Like I've seen a couple things get held up for a while. Maybe just 1 +1 is enough.
I think 1 +1, and if we just had a thing like core, although we should probably define it a little bit better. Like if something is controversial, or you think it might be controversial, just wait a certain amount of time on it.
Yeah, maybe we can steal the contribution policy from core and change it to you need 1 +1 and that's it, for non-controversial stuff.
All right.
I think the only other thing that would sort of fall under this, there was a slight discussion that Trent mentioned on APR a couple days ago is that do we want to have to, or do we want to like suggest to squash PR localization PRs that have like, I think we had one with like 7 commits that were like kind of all related because they're in that PR, but like it's all kind of wonky on in separate commits. And like my stance on that's that we should probably just squash it, but
I mean, do we have like a really simple automated way to do that? My only concern is that like if we're handing this over to the localization groups, like they may not have somebody that like is comfortable enough with Git to go and do that. Um, so if we have like a really easy script that we can point them at, then we can just say like, hey, please do this before you get these in.
Or we could build a guide for them, put it into the documentation within the website repo itself. Be like, the part of the translation documentation, and then just outline the commands they would need to run in the command line.
I mean, I feel like that we have those docs before, and it's still hard, right? And we even like the other day we had an issue where it was like hard for us to squash something and get it in that way. Like, I don't know. I'm more interested in just getting the translations up, and us not having to block them, than I am on like keeping the Git history.
That's fair. And for the most part, when you squash something, if I remember correctly, it turns it only into one contributor, doesn't it? So if there have been multiple people that have worked on it, it only is listed as one in the actual commit.
yeah, that's true. But we haven't had any PRs that have had multiple authors. Usually, you would keep them separate then.
Yeah, and with internationalization, they may have multiple people contributing at a given time. I think it'd be wisest and easiest for everyone to just make sure that to not squash it and to keep it all in. That, and everyone gets the satisfaction of being a contributor on the repo.
Cool. All right. That sounds good.
All right. So moving on, we've got we want to take a look at the website, a new website visual design pass and brand treatment. It's listed in GitHub issue number 181 on the website group. How do we want to approach this? I know that I've personally, when looking through that enormous thread of the logos, it's a little insane to try and logically suss out good ideas out of there. And I don't know how we want to, get designers involved for design passes for this, or if they're even interested.
So, I mean, as I've been really in that logo thread, and of all of the submissions, there's really only 2 brand treatments. There's only 2 full brand treatments, and one of them is really amazing and tells a really good story, but unfortunately, like the end asset, like the actual logo, the size of it is just a little bit hard to do as a hexagon, a circle, and a square, which we need for a lot of the social media assets. So I'm tempted to just see if we can move forward with the one submitted by Vijay, which is like, really nice, and everybody really likes it, and it provided that core likes it. There are variations that work in like every situation that we have that we need a logo in, and every situation that we have for visual design as well. The real question is like, do we have somebody that can either take some of that work and translate it into the actual website, or if Vijay is willing to step in and help as well. And one thing that I really don't want to like transition to using Jade templates or really complicating the build process with more technology until we have a designer and they can say like what they're comfortable using as well. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, if it's designed, I can probably implement a lot of it, but yeah. Then we need more design work for that because like it is a front-facing website and that's not our specialties at all.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've done a little bit of design in the past myself, but I'm definitely not professional with it. I do think we need a complete a brand treatment for it, but we would have to decide on which version of the logo they would want to do it with, because that's part of how they get the colors and everything for it.
So have you guys had a chance to look at the one that Vijay sent? In the keyheads?
I
Because,
have.
yeah,
The concern I've seen about it is that the INO is like a little bit hard to see at first, but like I didn't really find that. So
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It looks kind of a little like a robot with a necktie to me.
yeah, I don't have a super formal opinion about it. So
hmm I mean, so there is like a color scheme there. I mean, there's not like a visual design for the website there yet, but there is a color scheme which we could, start with, and maybe we can just see if Vijay is willing to work on like website design. And
Yeah.
if he is, like, I'd like to just move forward because like this is something that's just there, and I can bring this into the TC and be like, hey, we need these assets. Like, do you want to move forward with these ones? And they can say, yes or no. If we open it up to like a giant bike shed about design, it's just gonna get crazy. Um,
No, I agree. I think something that's a little more focused like this shouldn't necessarily be opened up to its own thread to let the elements have what they may with it. I think it needs a little bit more of a focused approach from an individual designer. And we may want to see possibly about adding a designer to the working group, even to handle things like this and logo management and font management and all of that stuff that is a little bit outside of our purview as developers. Um, but what do you guys think about that?
but which?
About adding a designer to the working group, someone who's willing to kind of put their head down and work, get all this stuff taken care of for
I
us.
mean, we have Zeke, but he doesn't have too much time to dedicate to it. So
yeah, I mean, I hope that Vijay can do it. I mean, he's pretty active in that thread about this, so it'd be nice to maybe pull him in. Also, I mean, it's possible that Vijay could do something like, here's a design from Photoshop, and there's a bunch of developers that can basically take a Photoshop mockup and make it into, like, a real website. Like Max Ogden's amazing at that. I doubt that I can get it at his time, but I think there are other people like that as well.
Okay. Michael, will you reach out to him and see if he's willing to take a closer look at that in the next couple weeks?
Sure.
Because
And
I think
I'll also make sure that this lands on the TC agenda this week so that we can like get a sort of like a soft rubber stamp on moving forward with this work. So.
all right. What was the name of the designer you're going to be talking to?
Vijay, he's in that thread, and he did the big sort of rocket treatment.
Okay, cool. In connection with that, we're looking at possibly implementing a new templating system with Jade. We've already got a pull request in there currently for it. I have not yet had the opportunity to take a look at it. I was going to do that last night and I got pulled away. But I like it. I'm really seeing some of the flaws in the HTML template build system that I set up. And I think something a little bit more standardized might be better for us in the long run, especially if we're going to be implementing a new visual design. I don't think, though, that we have to wait until we have the new design to get the templating system in place. I think it more or less whatever design we have, we want something to be able to build it,
For sure. I just don't want to pick a technology that's like actually pushes out a designer. I think that if Vijay says yes, then we can just ask him like, hey, how do you feel about the template system?
Okay. Yeah. Let's when you reach out to him, ask him about Jade and how comfortable he is with that, and see if he's willing to do it. And honestly, since all of us are front end developers ourselves, so long as the designer can give us a JPEG or a PNG of the design he wants implemented, I think that would be enough to hand it off to us to be able to implement it. I don't necessarily see a need in them understanding the language that we're building it in.
Yeah, like so long as we have a visual reference, like we could definitely do it.
I just know with the agency work that I've done, the designers don't know how to code whatsoever, and they just hand us images, and we end up building from there. But again, uh, any way that we want to approach this, we can. So
I mean, my stance on it is basically sure if people like it, if it works.
I'll take a look this week at the at that Jade pull request and to see how feasible it is for implementation. If it looks cleaner and faster than what we're already doing, then um, I'll I'll put it up to uh, a new issue real in GitHub to get a vote real fast from everyone, uh, and we'll go from there.
Great.
Seems fine. I took a quick look at it and it seemed fine to me.
All right. Moving on, we've got there's still some talks about a static blog page um, on issue 68. How do we want to do that? Do we, Michael? I seem to remember you commenting that you didn't want to have a specific blog in io.js.org itself, but rather, point them over to Medium or something like that. Is that something that you wanted to do?
I mean, wherever they're going to get the most traction. Right now, that is Medium. I mean, Medium, like we actually put it into a collection that has like thousands of people following it. So and the io.js Twitter account has thousands of people following it, which they map on Medium. So just a lot of people get pinged about it when we put it on Medium, which is why we want to continue to publish there. Um, I mean, for the translators, we have to build these posts in Markdown before we publish them to Medium, which we're now doing inside of issues on GitHub. There is like the original Markdown there, like available for them to translate. That's like really important. But I don't think that it's important that we have like a semi-official blog. Like it's this weird kind of, I don't want to say corporate-y thing, but it's a good sign to the community that we're going where they are to tell them where things are, rather than being like, hey, come over here, come look at like our blog and our piece. Like, I don't know. That's the way that I feel about kind of the like official Node.js blog right now. For sure. And I just want to avoid that kind of thing. And also, I think it's really important that the translators don't feel like they should be putting stuff into our blog. They can put it wherever they're going to get traction in their community.
Okay. There was a question in the IRC group from Ken Perkins. He's asking if I can explain how a static blog differs from the broader website itself. Um, if I am reading the question correctly, I think it's the difference between having an announcements page where we're talking about all the updates for the week in the io.js land, as opposed to official like release pages and download pages, documentation pages. Those would be more of the broader website, more of what's in our domain here.
Yeah, like what I had meant by static blog was basically something that doesn't need like any database or anything. It's just HTML pages that would have been compiled from Markdown. We would just commit to the repo. It'd be simple.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the main difference between any blog and what we have now is that we have a bunch of pages that are sort of like living points of truth that we continue to iterate on. Whereas like a blog post is like something that goes out and then you never touch it again, and it eventually becomes very dated, which is
Yeah,
yeah. I guess that would be the main difference. I don't think that like technically it's that big of a deal.
yeah, Michael has a point there.
Yeah, and honestly, if we've already got all the following on Twitter and Medium, I am very hesitant to throw those followers away by moving in onto our own domain. My vote would be to keep it, keep doing things the way we are with having a markdown for translation, but then posting it wherever the localization group or the website group decides to get it posted.
Yeah, and in general, like I want to not have like a ridiculous amount of process around getting things done. Like you see this with the official Node.js blog where there's like a big changelog post and it can block a release for like a day basically to get that up sometimes. And that's really annoying. Whereas like we release, we have a link to the changelog, it goes out on Twitter, that ends up in the weekly update. Then we write the weekly update, and everybody's sort of pitching in at each level to like promote the fact that the release happened on Twitter right when it happens, and then it also gets rolled up into this nice thing every week. And when we build that, we build it in a way that the translators can get at easily. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
All right. And with that, I think we should probably move this discussion back over to the static blog page issue. If you're looking for it in the GitHub issues on the website repo, it's issue number 68, and it's called static blog page. And I think that'd be a good one to move back there. But I think the general consensus, at least from the people that are here, is that we'll continue working with it the way we have been. And move on from there.
Yeah, Michael's previous explanation suits me fine. So.
Yeah. All right, moving on. We've got social media coordination and password sharing, issues 82 and 83. We've talked about the need for making sure that we can share logins without necessarily sharing the passwords, because that can get really messy really quick. Also, making sure that there is a coordinated effort between each of the platforms, and I'm wondering if that is also for between the different languages, but I'm not entirely sure. Was that you, Michael, that created that issue?
No, I don't. No, I think it was Bang did it created the issue, but I'm in the issue. So yeah, I kind of do want to separate this whole like login sharing from the actual work of maintaining some of these accounts, which is actually a lot more involved. If you look at the translation communities when they spun up, like we didn't tell them how to share passwords, and they came up with some pretty interesting ways of doing it. Like some of them were actually like PGP encrypting for people's different keys, and then posting the encrypted block into comments. Like it's insane.
Yeah, I saw that with that encryption sharing website. Totally want to get on that, but I don't have an invite. So, selfless plug, yay!
I mean, there's a lot of layers that we could obsess about in terms of security. I'm sure that somebody is sharing like a spreadsheet somewhere with just the passwords in them.
Hey, Michael, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Sorry. It's because I'm getting notifications out of IRC, and then it's making sounds and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, so sharing the passwords is not really that hard. I mean, like we have a dozen ways to do it. I think the much harder part is figuring out how to split up the work of maintaining the accounts. I mean, like in the build group, I'm pretty sure that it's just Rod has access to everything, and it's all kind of going through Rod right now, still at the scale that like the build stuff is at. And like a bunch of people actually do have the password to the official io.js Twitter, and we've been stepping on each other every once in a while. Like some people will get 2 responses from the official io.js account and stuff like that. So I really like in terms of the social media accounts especially, like I'm trying to find a tool or some good way to split up the effort of just maintaining it and responding to people. That's the harder part for me. I think that sharing the password is quite easy.
All right. What are some of the options that you found for coordinating that social media? You said you found some tools that might be able to handle that.
I mean, I've been looking into them, so I've been using Sprout Social. The problem that I have is that it's really buggy, and it's actually kind of hard to tell what people have done on different issues. For posting new things, we can share really easily with this app called Buffer, and we can sort of like time things to go out. The issue is that we have almost no timed posts, and a lot of what we do is actually respond to people, and it's terrible for that. So I'm still like investigating tools, and then when we find one, we're gonna have to figure out a way to pay for it. And most of these tools you pay per seat. So the more people that we have sort of helping out with the social media accounts, the more money we're gonna pay. it's like it's still just an ongoing process. Like I still haven't found a very good one. And Bit and Bang did a bunch of research too, and was like trying to find a good one, and said basically the same thing.
All right. Well, let's keep that social media coordination thread open then, and continue discussing the options as we go along with that. We definitely do want to make sure that our we're coordinated in our efforts out towards the people who are asking questions about io.js and whatnot. So, do either of you guys have anything to add on that front?
Not particularly.
All right. These last ones here I kind of left on for filler in the event that we have time. We wanted to take a look more into adding info on the build process end to end within the website to make sure that we can understand better, how the website gets from the GitHub repo all the way to the site itself. What process happens on the build side with the build working group.
Yeah, so I can probably take this. So I'm not really sure what's being used to watch the repo, but basically it just does it fetches the repo from Git and then checks it out, and that solves. It was changed from a poll earlier this week. Rod changed it, and that solved an issue where the site wasn't updating sometimes. We can probably just put that into the repo. I mean, the rest of the part is just it's being served on Nginx. We should probably. I'm not really sure if we can host the config in our repo the way that anything's set up right now, but I mean, I think we probably should have some of our own config there, because eventually we'd probably want to have it so that, like, if you are in China and you try to go to the English website, it like asks you or something, do you want the Chinese site or something,
And that makes sense. I think we've had a few people comment on, possibly putting in a switcher for that, or having auto detection. That's definitely something that we can take a look into doing.
So I actually really just fucking hate it when it does GeoIP lookup and switches you to another language, because I travel all the time and then I end up like looking at the German and like Singaporean versions of websites.
One of the best ways to do it actually would be to check the browser for its preferred language and then switch according to that.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, why don't we list all the localizations like on the bottom? But then if you're coming in for the first, and just like in client-side JavaScript, we can check the local language, and if it doesn't match, then we can be like, oh, hey, did you know that we have this Chinese thing? And just like tell them about it with like some kind of like dialogue, and then if they're like, yeah, whatever, I don't give a shit, we can just store that like in cache or something.
I mean, at least now this is kind of going down a rabbit hole, but we should probably just put like something that you can switch localizations at the bottom without actually switching to like ZH underscore whatever that traditional Chinese one is.
Yeah, I think that'll be the first step, is at least having a select box or something where you can select the localization that you want. Down the line, we can take a look at like adding a help box or a toast message or something that says, hey, you're currently located in China. Would you like to read this in Chinese? But, that's something we can look at down the line.
Also, and I didn't realize this until I started working with some of the localization groups, but some of them, even though they are translating the website and everything, and there are people that they want to target for that, the majority of developers that like are from that language would prefer it to be in English, surprisingly. It's this really
we have a Danish thread on that right now that I haven't merged because of that.
Yeah, and I think like we can totally merge the Danish localization since we're not automatically switching to it right now. But when we implement something like a switcher or a suggester, we may want to allow certain localizations to opt out of it, right?
Definitely, that sounds like a great idea.
Seems fine to me.
All right. Moving on, we've got taking a look at the IRC web interface, issues 106 and 107. A couple weeks ago, we decided to stick with IRC and IRC alone for our at least where our contributor is going to be staying. While some people can go to Gitter or things along those lines, that they won't be official locations. We did talk about, however, finding a web interface that was easier for end users to use, and the possibility of maybe picking up the what was it, the Slate repo. It looks like that was maintained by, was it TJ Holloway Chuck that was doing that?
Yeah,
or
TJ and someone else. I think the main thing for this is that none of us really have time for this right now.
That's fair. And honestly, that's something that I may want to see about looking into myself. It's something that I would be interested in maintaining personally. And so maybe that will be something I do, and we can talk about that once it's at a place to work with.
I mean, so is the state of the issue basically that we're agreed on what should happen, more or less, and everybody's in agreement about what should happen? It's just we need code.
Well, we're all in agreement of things need to be better than the current free node interface for users, but we don't know yet what to move to. We've talked about a couple different options. There was one that was doing like smart grouping. What was the name of that? I forget.
Scrollback. So like
Yeah,
the thing with scrollback is that like it does so much on top of IRC that like it's actually confusing to use because there's just so much else going on that you don't really need. And yeah.
Yeah, and so we're looking at finding an interface that is simple, clean, easy for newcomers to hop straight into to get answers to questions, but still is, maintaining what exactly IRC is, as opposed to kind of abstracting it away into a little bit more magic than kind of like Scrollback was doing. And we found a project called Slate, which would work really well, but it's a standalone. It's a standalone application currently and requires a bit of configuration. But that's something that I'll take a look into in the next couple of weeks. If I can get a copy of Slate and kind of make a web version of it, then that may solve our problems. But that'll be on my own time. I'll see what I can do with that.
Okay, cool.
All right, moving on, we had someone ask about an RSS feed for releases and changelog.
Yeah, like this can probably come along rather easily once we have the like hosting quote unquote build actually like build the website.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't think it should be too hard to set up.
Yeah, I mean, so there's already a JSON file there, right? So provided that every time a build happens, it can re-trigger the website to rebuild, then we can just build a really simple XML feed using templates off of that JSON file, right?
Actually, it's possible that issue can just be moved to the build repo because they might be able to do something in terms of an RSS feed sooner.
I don't think they're going to get to that like soon. they have other things that they're working on.
Yeah, and I think that's more within the purview of our group. Ken Perkins just commented in the IRC. Doesn't GitHub Releases already provide an RSS feed? Do you guys know if GitHub already?
They might, but I don't think that we have anyone who's going to maintain an RSS. Sorry, the GitHub Releases feed alongside the releases stuff we already do. I had wanted to make a tool that would like automatically release from a changelog file like for a different project ages ago, but it ends up being not as simple as you'd think.
No, well, so in the really early days we talked about how we really should use this feature and tool something into the into the build system that hooks into their API, so that we can continue to use the releases feature. Because we already tag, and the tags become releases. Like that's like what
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we should build on this, and this should definitely be a build issue to get more stuff into it. The issue though is that it's never going to have the nightlies, right? It's only going to have like actual released like semver builds. So if we want an RSS feed of the nightlies, we'd still have to do it with the other tooling and not with the releases API.
I find it hard to imagine that anyone would want an RSS feed of nightlies.
I think that's the main thing that a lot of people want, actually, so that they can like do an auto updater basically.
Okay.
So I'm unfortunately less versed in RSS feeds. Jeremiah, would you take point on that and seeing what can be done in
I mean, I
regards
don't
to
really
that?
have any experience with it, but I can see what can be done with it, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I've done this a couple times, and what it really comes down to is don't use a tool for building XML, because that's just a pile of garbage. Just take a working RSS feed, templatize it into like handlebars or something, and then figure out where you have to escape from. That's about it.
All right. Last thing on the agenda today is looking at adding nightlies onto the main page listed as unstable. How difficult would that be to implement, do you guys think?
Oh, I almost did this actually. I like had half of the code up there, but it was before you did the build stuff, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna wait on this and then redo it when the whole website changes. But I think we can do it really easily with client-side JavaScript. Like just go
Yeah,
and
I mean, we can make like a quick thing with client side that can do it pretty easy. I remember talking with Michael about that.
All right. Michael, since you were doing it before, is it okay if you take point for getting that rolling for now that we've at least got a temporary build set up?
yeah, I can totally do that.
Cool. Looks like that's everything that's on the agenda for today. Make sure everyone here at some point in the next couple days take a look at the Google Doc where we have the minutes listed. There are some major sections that I did not catch in the minutes, so we want to make sure that we're filling those in. Also, anyone watching, if we missed something, feel free to open an issue in regards to it or find an issue that's currently open, and we'd be happy to discuss it further there. We're going to be having another meeting. We've been doing this every other week. Do we want to just keep doing that? I'm assuming.
At the current pace of things, it seems the most reasonable.
All right.
It's fun.
Cool. So we'll have another meeting in 2 weeks, which looks like March 2nd, and we'll open up a doodle for times to see when everyone's available for it. To anyone watching, make sure you check us out on Twitter and on. Do we have a Facebook page, Michael?
We do have a Facebook page, but we don't really update it much. This is like another tooling issue that we have with social media.
Gotcha.
But the Google Plus page always has them because we have to schedule them from this account, so they post to the YouTube channel. So they're on like the Google Plus events page no matter what.
Cool. So yeah, for anyone watching, feel free to see if there is an io.js account on whatever social media platform you're using, and if you find us, follow us, like us, spread the word, tell your friends. Thank you so much to Jeremiah and to Michael for coming today, and we will meet again in the future.